Hi, hello everyone and welcome to this video of the Exeter School on Urban Analytics. This is the first video of the Social Media Mining mini module. Dr. Diogo Pacheco and I will give you a brief introduction about the different tools and methodologies for investigating social media in relationship with urban analytics. My name is Dr. Massimo Stella. I am a lecturer in computer science at the University of Exeter, where I lead the Cognosco Lab in knowledge modeling. Let's start. Let's start by having a look at the different components of social media. Social media are digital ecosystems where online users share their own content. We are seeing this with this picture. This is a timeline of Twitter content where we see that different users are promoting their own ideas and experiences. They are doing this by sharing different sorts of data, be it textual descriptions, hashtags, emojis, or pictures. What they are doing, well, these users are sharing their own knowledge, and they are doing this by using some social interactions so that, for instance, a certain person can share some content or a story with their own followers. There are other types of social interactions like people resharing content, mentioning each other, or replying to each other. Last but not least, we need to take into account that all these different sorts of data, well, they all come from users' minds. We actually should be quite careful because not all the users on social media are humans endowed with cognition. Some online users are quite different. They are automated accounts driven by artificial intelligence, and you will be hearing some more about them in a video by Dr. Pacheco. For now, let's consider these different cognitive aspects. And let's underline that social media are digital ecosystems where online users share content in complex ways. In fact, in order to understand what kind of content is being shared, we need to keep into account that social media have some sort of data at their own core. This data is promoted and diffused by different social interactions. This data is made of knowledge. It represents the knowledge of different social media users. If we want to analyze such knowledge, we need to keep into account that this comes from the minds of users. So we need to interpret the data from a cognitive perspective. So you see that social media are quite complex systems where multiple levels, multiple aspects of social and cognitive interactions get together. If we have the right tools, we can combine these aspects and we can employ social media data to really understand how online users discuss ideas. And this is quite exciting. This is what makes social media analysis an exciting challenge. Well, but if we have this interpretation of social media as mostly being personal diaries where online users share their own ideas, experiences, and content, we might ask ourselves, okay, but well, how strong is this sort of interpretation? How many people, for instance, use or have access to these sort of personal diaries? Well, we have a survey reported here by Oberlo that asked how many people use Facebook all over the world. And we can read that actually on Facebook there is a total of 1.84 billion users that log on Facebook on a daily basis. 1.84 billion. This is quite a big number. So there is quite a lot of personal diaries, personal experiences being reshared, commented, and ultimately diffused within social media platforms. Also, if we consider why do these users use Facebook, we have another survey by the Atlantic 2020, and we can read the most frequent reasons that drive users' behavior on Facebook. And we can read that users use Facebook mostly for seeing what their friends are up to relieve boredom, to look at friends' pictures, to procrastinate, to send individual messages, to let their friends know what they're up to. So we see that all these responses are relative to a sharing, some sort of sharing of personal experiences. So that the diaries that are present on social media are actually reshared among different users. If we could access these diaries, we might interpret how individuals express themselves. Well, and in order to better underline how large and how massive social media are around the world, let's have a look at this other visualization provided by Hotsuite in 2020. Across different social media platforms, so not considering anymore only Facebook, we have all over the world a total of 3.96 billion of active social media users. Almost 51% of the global population of the whole world has access to social media on a regular basis. This number is steadily increasing at a plus 10.5% per year, and 99% of the accesses to social media is mediated by mobile phones, which means that users have an ease of access to these platforms, and they can easily express themselves and read content through their smartphones. So social media are growing and they keep reaching larger and larger audiences over time. Let's have a look at who is using social media. This is a demographics by Omnicore that is mostly related to the US, which is actually the largest, one of the largest audiences all over the world. So we can understand what type of social media users have access to these stories, to these personal stories online. And we see that it's not true that social media gave voice to everyone. Certainly, social media gave voice to many, but not to everyone. In fact, when you look at the different demographics of social media users, we see that there are some biases. So that some categories tend to use more or tend to access more social media than other types of demographics. For instance, 70% of Twitter users all over the world are male, while only 30% of these users are female. 21% of US adults use Twitter, so only 21%. And of this fraction, that is again in the US, 54% of US Twitter users are male, whereas 43% are female. So you see that there is a gap based on gender, so that males, like men around the world, tend to use social media data more actively than women. This means that the diaries that we end up reading from social media might not be perfectly representative of what women think, because they are accessing social media data less actively or less frequently than what men are doing. So this is quite important. Let's again remember that social media gave voice to many, but not to everyone. When we want to experiment and reconstruct how social media users, for instance, perceive urban landscape or discuss cities online, where we need to keep into account that what we are reading, the stories that we are reading, do not come from the whole population of a nation or more nations at once, but they are representative of those specific demographics that have access to social media. Always in the US, we see that there is a predominance of younger people that have access to social media, They are well educated because they have at least a college degree and they earn at least $75,000. So they have a higher salary than the average. So we see that the demographics is quite specific. It doesn't correspond exactly to the average demographics of a whole nation level. Also, we need to keep in account that social media data are highly structured. The structure of social interactions like replies, mentions, or following people, well, these social interactions, they create what we call a social network. This social network is highly structured and it possesses different categories of users so that we find a non-negligible fraction of people with large followings and also a massive number of individuals that have a very low number of followers. These users tend to form some constellations around highly influential social users, so that we see that this creates a dichotomy in the different types of social media interactions that can be present online. This is quite different from normal cliques where more or less we all have a certain amount of friends or we have access to a certain amount of colleagues at work. On social media, we can have the influencer involving millions of people or reaching millions of people at once. And we also have a wide number of audiences that are highly exposed to the messages produced by these influencers. Also, these social interactions, they can drive a wide variety of semantic content, which we will be having a look at in the text analysis mini videos and this mini module. Social interactions can convey text, they can promote hashtags, emojis, and so much more, like videos or pictures. Understanding the semantic and emotional content of such interactions is key for understanding the dynamics of information exchange and viral content, for instance, on social media. This is particularly important also for understanding how users discuss aspects of cities, like, for instance, reviews or like perceptions of different areas of urban landscape. So then, I would like to conclude this first video by underlining that social media are quite, investigating social media is quite exciting because social media are quite complex. Accessing the structure of social interactions and the cognitive content of these interactions can be quite important for a variety of purposes, like, for instance, using social media to predict election results, or understanding social media consumption for predicting COVID-19 emotional distress, or characterizing organ donation awareness, or even identifying key trends in mental health, always related to the COVID-19 pandemic, or even in the in the context of urban planning and urban analytics, we could use social media to understand drivers of urban park visitation in specific city landscapes. So social media are quite the pool for different sort of resources, for different sort of analysis um, based declined for different applications. So then, to conclude, this module will give you a brief intro about the following points. How to gather and mine online data, understanding the important and crucial key ethical aspects of performing social media mining for research purposes, processing textual components of social media data, how to reconstruct and how to explore social networks in digital ecosystems, how to raise awareness about social manipulation by a specific class of social users that you will see in Dr. Pacheco's videos. Online bots or social bots are AI-driven accounts that can manipulate people's behaviors and thoughts online. This mini module will also provide some information about how we can adopt social media data for exploring how cities are perceived and discussed by online users. So I hope you have plenty of fun in these 2 hours of videos, and I look forward to meeting you for the hands-on session. Thank you.